Well, that was the Kimmel thing, right?
Well, that was, no, they,
Did you ever
even
talk to
before
that dude? Have you ever talked to him?
I've been on the show
Yeah?
years ago. Yeah.
It all started with a joke, a flat one. One of those jokes where the punchline lands with a thud and you can almost hear the studio crew forcing laughter behind the scenes. That joke, like many others before it, came from Jimmy Kimmel. For years, he was seen as one of late night television's leading voices, but now it seems like the only thing he's leading is a slow march toward irrelevance. And as audiences tune out and ratings fall, one question looms larger than ever. What happened to Jimmy Kimmel?
So Jimmy Kimmel was doing it. He was doing it too.
Yeah, he was doing it too.
Yeah. No, he was being accused of joking about it too.
Yes. So they were upset at him, even though he was attacking the appropriate person. He was doing it in a manner which is also construed as being transphobic. Like they were saying that his tweet is transphobic.
At one point in time, Jimmy Kimmel had that rare mix of charisma and confidence that made him a household name. He knew how to work a crowd, poke fun without causing too much harm, and walk the tightrope of comedy with ease. But those days are long gone. Now each night on his show feels more like a lecture than a laugh fest. The excitement is missing, the charm has evaporated. What once felt effortless now comes across as forced, and even the diehard fans have started to notice the shift. You don't have to be a comedy expert to recognize when something feels off. And with Kimmel, it's hard not to notice. Where there used to be humor that brought people together, there's now a strained attempt to stay relevant in a world that's moved on. His monologues have become predictable. His delivery has lost its timing. His jokes land like recycled leftovers from last week's internet memes. It's not just bad comedy, it's outdated comedy. Behind the curtain, Kimmel seems to have forgotten that comedy is about connection. Instead of adapting to the evolving taste of audiences, he's clung to a formula that once worked and now feels stale. Meanwhile, younger, fresher entertainers are rising to the occasion, grabbing attention, breaking new ground, and leaving Kimmel in the dust. There's a sense that he's out of sync, like an aging DJ trying to spin records from an era long gone, unaware that the crowd has already moved on to the next beat. What's even more glaring is the show's declining viewership. The numbers don't lie. Ratings are dropping, viewers are switching channels or logging off altogether. In the golden age of streaming, where talent thrives on platforms that reward originality and risk-taking, Kimmel's nightly routine has become background noise. His jokes are often more likely to trigger eye rolls than applause. Even his once loyal viewers are now questioning whether the show is worth staying up for. One reason for this growing disinterest is that Kimmel seems more concerned with staying safe than being funny. The spontaneity is gone. The clever quips have been replaced by scripted routines, and the audience is starting to feel the difference. Viewers aren't looking for perfection, they're looking for authenticity. And in a landscape filled with passionate creators and bold personalities, Kimmel's rehearsed monologues feel like a relic of a bygone era. Another issue plaguing the show is its reliance on celebrity interviews that lack substance. For years, these interviews were a major draw, unscripted, unexpected, and full of charm. But now, the segments feel more like press tours than conversations. Celebrities appear to promote a product, say a few safe lines, and leave. The spark is gone. The spontaneity that once made Kimmel's show a must-watch has faded into carefully coordinated chats that feel more like commercials than late-night fun. But perhaps the most puzzling part of Kimmel's decline is his unwillingness to adapt. While other hosts are embracing new formats, new platforms, and new audiences, Kimmel appears content to repeat the same formula night after night. He hasn't transitioned to digital with the same energy or creativity as others. He hasn't taken bold risks or tried innovative formats. And as a result, he's being left behind by an industry that rewards growth, experimentation, and boldness. Late night television has changed, the world has changed, and Jimmy Kimmel, he hasn't. That's the real tragedy here. For someone who once had the potential to be one of the all-time greats, Kimmel now seems like a performer stuck in the past. His refusal to evolve isn't just disappointing, it's telling. It shows a disconnect not just with the audience, but with the very nature of entertainment itself. There's also the problem of his recurring segments. What used to feel spontaneous now feels manufactured. The same types of sketches, the same tone, the same guests. It all feels like deja vu. Audiences aren't laughing because they're surprised anymore. They're laughing out of habit, or worse, not laughing at all. Kimmel's jokes lack punch because they lack risk. And in a world hungry for fresh perspectives and creativity, playing it safe just doesn't cut it anymore. The biggest late-night hosts of the past knew how to evolve. Johnny Carson kept things fresh for decades. David Letterman constantly reinvented his material. Even Conan O'Brien, who transitioned into podcasting and internet comedy, found ways to stay ahead of the curve. Jimmy Kimmel, on the other hand, seems locked into a cycle of repetition that's draining the life out of his show. His approach is beginning to feel like a case study in how not to age with your audience. You can't help but wonder if Jimmy Kimmel even enjoys doing the show anymore. There's a visible difference between someone who loves their craft and someone who's just clocking in. The spark, the passion, the edge, it's all missing. What remains is a tired host going through the motions, hoping nostalgia will keep viewers around. But in this age, nostalgia isn't enough. People want connection. They want something real. And Jimmy Kimmel Live just isn't delivering. And let's not forget the competition. With platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and podcasts dominating attention spans, viewers are spoiled for choice. And many of those choices offer something Kimmel no longer provides: authenticity, real moments, genuine laughter, and spontaneous energy. Kimmel's overly polished and overly scripted presentation feels artificial in a digital world where raw, relatable content wins every time. Another major blow to Kimmel's image is how he handles criticism. Rather than responding with humility or humor, he often deflects or doubles down. That lack of self-awareness only pushes audiences further away. Great comedians know how to take a joke even when it's at their expense. Kimmel, unfortunately, seems to have forgotten that. The inability to laugh at himself has made it difficult for viewers to laugh with him. The writing is on the wall and the message is clear. If Kimmel wants to recapture what once made his show great, he has to reinvent himself. He has to stop relying on formulaic humor and start listening to what audiences actually want. He has to reconnect with the spontaneity, the excitement, and the passion that once made his show stand out. Because right now it's fading fast and people are tuning out. There's still a chance for redemption, of course, a chance to rebuild, rebrand, and reignite, but time is running out. Every episode that sticks to the same tired routine is another lost opportunity. If Jimmy Kimmel wants to remain part of the conversation, he's going to have to change the script literally and figuratively. And the longer he waits, the harder that comeback will be. In a world where engagement is king, Kimmel's brand of humor feels passive. Viewers don't want to be told what to laugh at. They want to feel something real. They want to be part of a moment that's alive, not scripted to death. They want a host who's present, passionate, and plugged into the world. And if Kimmel can't provide that, there are plenty of others who will. The world doesn't owe anyone relevance, not even Jimmy Kimmel. He earned his place in the spotlight once, but staying there takes effort, creativity, and humility. It takes the ability to grow with your audience instead of expecting them to stay where you left them. It takes reinvention. And right now, Jimmy Kimmel is in desperate need of one. There's a certain irony to it all. A host who once thrived by poking fun at others now finds himself the subject of jokes. A once bright star now dimmed by complacency and repetition. It's not about one bad joke or one bad show. It's about a pattern of stagnation, of predictability, and of missed opportunities. That's the real punchline, and it's not a funny one. Maybe Kimmel will see this as a wake-up call. Maybe he'll use it as fuel to reinvent his act and come back stronger than ever. But maybe not. Maybe this is the final act of a once great career quietly winding down. Either way, the audience is watching. And more importantly, the audience is choosing. And every night, more and more of them are choosing something else. Because at the end of the day, comedy is supposed to bring people together. It's supposed to challenge, inspire, and connect. Jimmy Kimmel's show once did that, but now it feels like a rerun no one asked for, a script that should have ended seasons ago, a story that's run out of laughs. The curtain hasn't fallen yet, but if something doesn't change soon, it will. And this time, there might not be any applause. As the spotlight continues to dim on Jimmy Kimmel's stage, something even more concerning begins to emerge. Not just his disconnect from the audience, but his disconnect from the very industry that once embraced him. Entertainment is evolving rapidly. And while other hosts and comedians are leaning into innovation, experimentation, and digital transformation, Kimmel has seemingly chosen to stay in a static lane. And that decision may cost him his place at the top for good. In today's content-driven world, creators are doing what Kimmel refuses to, taking risks. Podcasts are booming, sketch comedy is thriving online, and new comedic voices are going viral daily. Meanwhile, Kimmel's brand feels like it's stuck on a loop, replaying the same stale scripts with slight variations as if the audience won't notice, but viewers do notice. They crave evolution, and when it doesn't come, they simply move on. That's the harsh reality of the entertainment game in 2025. What's worse is that Kimmel hasn't just stayed stagnant, he's lost his edge. There was a time when he offered sharp, insightful humor that felt timely and relevant. Now his bits often feel like a last-minute addition to a weekly newsletter, over-polished, under-inspired, and painfully cautious. The unpredictability, the edge, the excitement of what will he say next is gone. In its place is a calculated, overly curated performance that leaves viewers wanting more, but not in a good way. And while many late-night hosts face similar struggles, Kimmel stands out because he had every opportunity to pivot and didn't. He had the resources, the influence, and the name recognition to turn his show into something fresh and groundbreaking. Instead, he doubled down on predictability as if nostalgia alone could keep the engine running. But nostalgia fades and audiences grow up. They're looking for what's next, not what's left over. Even his attempts to be self-referential or meta come off as hollow. Moments where he jokes about the show's declining viewership or takes swipes at his own network feel less like clever self-awareness and more like passive resignation. It's the comedy equivalent of shrugging your shoulders in defeat, and when the host doesn't seem invested, neither will the audience. The guests, too, reflect the problem. Where once he invited game-changing talent, new faces, and viral stars, he now seems content recycling the same rotation of celebrities making the same rounds. It's become a factory process. Sit down, plug the project, tell a rehearsed story, laugh politely, and exit stage left. There's no energy, no spark, no sense that anything unscripted or spontaneous could happen. And in today's world, where authenticity reigns supreme, that kind of predictability is a ratings killer. There's also the matter of digital engagement, or rather, the lack of it. While newer voices are blowing up on platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and streaming apps, Kimmel's digital footprint remains surprisingly weak. The clips he posts feel edited for traditional TV audiences, not for the short-form, high-energy style that modern platforms reward. It's as if the show's digital team is trying to squeeze TV into a phone screen rather than adapting the content to fit the medium. Other creators are building entire communities online. They interact with fans, go live, post behind-the-scenes moments, and create side projects that keep them relevant even when their main shows are off-air. Kimmel, on the other hand, has remained largely distant. There's little direct engagement, few viral moments, and almost no indication that he's paying attention to how the modern media landscape functions. In many ways, he's become a symbol of what late-night television used to be: rigid, overly scripted, and reliant on the same formula that worked 10 years ago. But those formulas are failing. Ratings are down across the board, and audiences are gravitating to voices that feel more genuine. People want to feel like they're part of a conversation, not just watching a broadcast. And Kimmel's show feels more and more like a broadcast that forgot how to connect. Another factor in his decline is the growing list of hosts and personalities doing comedy better, fresher, faster, and funnier. While Kimmel repeats jokes from a pool of safe writers, creators on platforms like YouTube and Twitch are pushing boundaries with zero studio backing. They're not afraid to test formats, challenge norms, or interact with fans in real time. That kind of immediacy, honesty, and adaptability is impossible to replicate in the vacuum of a tightly controlled studio set. When someone like Jimmy Kimmel tries to dabble in edgier or riskier content today, it often comes across as calculated rather than genuine. You can sense the walls closing in, the team of writers, producers, and network executives hovering behind the scenes to make sure nothing slips through. And that's the problem. There's no space left to be real. Every joke is filtered. Every moment is managed. The spontaneity is gone, and without it, the magic is gone too. Even the visual presentation of his show hasn't evolved much. While other shows lean into modern graphics, flexible sets, interactive tech, and digital guest experiences, Kimmel's studio looks largely the same. It feels more like a museum than a hub of cutting-edge entertainment. And while familiarity can be comforting, it can also signal stagnation. And Kimmel's set tells a story of a brand that stopped innovating years ago. The contrast becomes even clearer when you look at some of the rising stars on streaming platforms. These hosts are not only delivering humor, but doing so with creativity, passion, and a personal touch. They're filming in their bedrooms, editing on laptops, and pulling in millions of views because their audiences feel connected to them. Meanwhile, Kimmel operates from a massive studio with $1 million budget and somehow manages to produce content that feels less relevant than someone recording on an iPhone. The most painful part of this story is that it didn't have to be this way. Jimmy Kimmel had the experience, the brand, and the platform to reinvent himself and redefine what late-night comedy could look like in the digital age. He could have led the charge. Instead, he resisted change, clung to the old playbook, and watched from the sidelines as the world moved on. Now, it's not just viewers who are tuning out, it's also cultural influence. Once a go-to place for viral moments and social conversation starters, Jimmy Kimmel Live is rarely talked about these days. Other than the occasional controversy or slip-up, his name no longer generates buzz. His show doesn't trend, his segments don't go viral, and his interviews don't feel like must-see moments. They feel like obligations. Even legacy media is starting to take note. Critics who once praised his wit and influence now raise questions about his relevance. Think pieces have emerged discussing the fall of late-night TV, and more often than not, Kimmel's name is at the center of that conversation. He's not just a late-night host struggling in the ratings. He's become a symbol of an era that's fading fast, replaced by a more dynamic, more interactive generation of entertainers. But the true cost of Jimmy Kimmel's stagnation might not be ratings or relevance. It might be respect. Within the entertainment community, respect is earned by those who take risks, who challenge themselves, who adapt to new circumstances. Sticking to the same tired routine, refusing to grow, and falling back on safe choices doesn't inspire admiration, it inspires indifference. And that's exactly what Kimmel seems to be surrounded by now: indifference. Fans who once tuned in religiously now scroll past his clips without a second thought. Viewers who once quoted his monologues now share memes from new creators instead. The world has changed and the audience has changed with it. But Jimmy Kimmel? He's still delivering jokes as if it's 2012. And in an era of endless content options, that kind of delay is fatal. Even among other late-night hosts, Kimmel now feels like the odd one out. While others experiment with musical numbers, documentary-style segments, and unscripted deep dives, he's still playing the same old game. And the audience isn't playing along anymore. They're not laughing, they're not engaging, they're not watching. The show may still air, but in many ways it's already over. So what's next for Jimmy Kimmel? That's the question nobody wants to ask, but everyone is thinking about. Will he finally take the hint and refresh his approach? Or will he ride this wave of mediocrity until the network pulls the plug? Will he discover a new passion and shift gears entirely? Or stay the course and watch the brand he built continue to erode? At the end of the day, the choice is his. But one thing is clear: doing nothing isn't working. The fans have spoken. The ratings have spoken. The cultural conversation has moved on. If Jimmy Kimmel doesn't evolve, he'll be remembered not for the heights he once reached, but for how quietly he faded out.